The moving truck pulled up in front of the house on Maple Street. It was a bright sunny day. Birds chirped, children played down the road. Everything looked perfect. James and Mia stood outside their new home, smiling. They had worked hard for years to buy this place. It had a small garden, a white fence, and enough space to start a family. "This is it," James said, holding Mia's hand. "A new beginning." Mia nodded, tears in her eyes. No more tiny apartments, no more noisy neighbors, just peace. But across the street, behind a lace curtain, someone else was watching. Mrs. Whitman, an old woman in her 70s, sat by her window. She lived alone. Her eyes followed James and Mia as they unloaded boxes. Her lips tightened. She picked up the phone. "Hello, police. I think there's a break-in happening." "Yes." "Two people. They look suspicious." She stared harder, lowering her voice. "They're black. I don't think they belong here." Back outside, James and Mia laughed as they carried boxes into the house. "This one's all books," Mia joked. "You're carrying it." "I wrote half of them," James replied with a grin. "I think that counts." They didn't notice the police car turning onto their street. Blue and red lights flashed. The sound of a siren cut through the calm. Mia's smile faded. James froze. Two police officers stepped out quickly. One hand was already on his gun. "You!" the taller officer shouted. "Step away from the house." James looked confused. "I live here." "Now," the officer barked. Mia stepped forward. "Excuse me, what's going on?" "Someone reported a break-in," the other officer said. "We need ID." "Now." James slowly put the box down and raised his hands. "My wallet's in the car. I can show you. But please, don't raise your voice." The officer grabbed James's arm anyway. Mia gasped. "Stop." He didn't do anything. Neighbors started to peek out from their homes. Some watched silently. Others took out their phones. James turned his head slightly and whispered to Mia, "This isn't about a break-in. It's about our skin." 10 minutes later, everything changed. Mia showed the officers the house deed and James's ID from her purse. The officers checked the documents. They mumbled something and let go of James. "Sorry for the mix-up," one of them said without looking them in the eye. They walked back to their car and drove away without another word. James stood still, breathing hard. Mia held his hand. It was shaking. Across the street, Mrs. Whitman watched again. This time, she didn't smile. Her face was cold. "They think they can just move in," she whispered. "Not in this neighborhood." She closed the curtain. But she wasn't done. That evening, James and Mia sat on their new porch. "I want to love this house," Mia said quietly. "But already, I feel like we're not welcome." James looked out at the street. "We are not going anywhere. We belong here." He looked at the camera above the front door. "Let them watch. We'll be ready." Mia nodded, leaning on his shoulder. But deep inside, both of them knew. This was only the beginning. The sun was shining again on Maple Street. Balloons were tied to fences. Tables were set up with snacks and drinks. It was the weekend of the neighborhood block party, a yearly event where families gathered to meet, eat, and laugh. James and Mia stood near their house, dressed nicely, holding a fruit bowl. "This is our chance," Mia said. "Let's meet the neighbors. Start fresh." James smiled. "Yeah, let's show them who we really are." But across the street, Mrs. Whitman was already whispering. She leaned close to a younger woman holding a baby. "I've seen them coming home late at night," she said softly. "Strange people visit them. I don't want trouble near my home." The young woman looked unsure, but they seemed nice. Mrs. Whitman raised her eyebrows. "You don't know what kind of people they really are." At the party, James and Mia greeted people warmly. Some smiled back, some didn't. An older man nodded at James, but quickly walked away. Two kids pointed at Mia and whispered something their mother quickly hushed. Still, Mia stayed hopeful. She saw a little girl crying by the sidewalk. Her toy doll had fallen into a puddle. Mia bent down, cleaned it gently with a napkin, and gave it back. "There you go, sweetheart." The girl smiled. "Thank you." But behind her, the child's mother pulled her away. She didn't say thank you. She didn't even look at Mia. Halfway through the party, someone shouted, "Has anyone seen Timmy's toy truck?" A small red toy was missing from the grass. People looked around. Then Mrs. Whitman's voice rose above the crowd. "I saw her walking near that spot," she said, pointing at Mia. Maya looked shocked. "What? I didn't take anything." James stepped forward. "That's enough. Don't point fingers without proof." But the damage was done. Murmurs spread. Eyes turned cold again. Even the music felt quieter. Later that night, back at their home, James slammed the door. "This is ridiculous," he said. "They think we're thieves now." Mia sat on the couch, silent. "I tried to help a child, and she accused me." James paced the room. "We need to talk to someone. A lawyer, the homeowners board, someone." But Maya shook her head. "They'll just say we're causing trouble." Outside, Mrs. Whitman sat on her porch, sipping tea. She smiled to herself. The party had gone just as she wanted. No one asked her to lie. She only had to plant seeds. Let the doubt grow. Let fear do the rest. A few nights later, James stood in front of their house, taking in the silence. He looked around the street. Everyone had returned to their lives. But something was different now. People stopped waving, stopped smiling. Doors closed a little faster when he walked by. And inside those homes, the whispering continued. The final straw came when James found a letter in their mailbox. It wasn't signed, but it had only one line. "Go back where you came from." He showed it to Mia. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat down and stared at the floor. That night, as James locked the door, he said quietly, "It's not just one neighbor, Mia. It's all of them now." Mia looked up. "No, not all. Not yet. We just have to stay strong." But in the dark, both of them felt it. The hate was growing, and they were alone. It was late evening. The sun had just gone down, and the street was quiet. James sat at the dining table, finishing paperwork from his job. Mia was in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner. Music played softly in the background. Suddenly, knock, knock, knock. 3 loud knocks echoed through the house. James opened the door and saw 2 police officers standing on the porch. His heart dropped. "Can we come in?" the taller officer asked. James nodded slowly. "What's going on?" "We got a report about a strong smell of marijuana coming from this address." James blinked. "What? That's not possible. We don't smoke anything." Mia joined him at the door. "Is this a joke?" The second officer didn't smile. "We take all complaints seriously. May we look around?" James sighed. "We have nothing to hide." "Go ahead." The officers walked through the living room, the kitchen, even the garage. They found nothing. After 20 minutes, they returned to the front door. "We didn't find anything illegal," one of them said. "But try to keep it down at night. People are complaining." James looked at him. "Which people?" The officer didn't answer. They left without another word. James stood frozen for a moment. Then he turned to Mia. "This is her again, Mrs. Whitman." Mia shook her head. "She won't stop. She's trying to push us out." James nodded slowly. "Then we need to protect ourselves." He walked to the hallway closet and pulled out a small box. Inside were 2 security cameras. "I'm setting these up tonight." The next morning, James mounted one camera on the front porch. The other went near the garage. Both recorded motion day and night. Mia watched from inside, her face full of worry. "Do you think this will stop her?" James tightened the last screw. No, but at least now, we'll see her. That night, just past 3:00 a.m., James was woken by a noise. He grabbed his phone and opened the security app. The front porch camera had recorded movement. He pressed play. The screen showed Mrs. Whitman, in a bathrobe, walking slowly past their mailbox. She stopped, looked around. Then she dropped something in their trash can and hurried back to her house. James stared at the screen, shocked. "What is she doing?" Mia whispered. James whispered back, "I don't know yet, but now we have proof she's coming onto our property." The next morning, James checked the trash can. Inside, he found an empty plastic bag with powdery residue. He didn't touch it, just took pictures. Maya stood beside him, shaking. "Is she trying to plant drugs?" James nodded. "She wants us gone, and she's willing to lie to make it happen." They took the video and photos to the local police station. But the officer at the desk just sighed. "It's not enough," he said. "She didn't put anything directly inside your home. There's no clear threat." James frowned. "You mean we have to wait until she does something worse?" The officer shrugged. "It's her word against yours. Just stay calm. These things usually pass." James walked out, furious. Mia followed in silence. The next weekend, they tried to forget everything. Maya planted flowers in the garden. James worked on building a small bench. Things felt normal, for a moment, until another note appeared on their porch. It wasn't in an envelope, just a scrap of paper placed under a flower pot. "You don't belong here." This time, James didn't say anything. He just stared at the words, then slowly tore the paper in half. That night, Mia held his hand. "We're not safe here, are we?" James didn't answer at first. Then he said, softly, "Not yet, but I won't let her win." But deep in his heart, James felt the pressure building. Mrs. Whitman had tried lies, then fear, and something told him the next move would be even worse. Days passed. James checked the cameras every night. Most of the time, he saw nothing unusual, just cars driving by, people walking their dogs. But one night, around 2:37 a.m., something strange happened. He saw a figure standing near their garage. It was Mrs. Whitman again. But this time, she wasn't alone. She whispered to a younger man, someone James had never seen before. They both looked around carefully. The man took something out of his backpack, a small spray can. He walked over to the side of James and Mia's house and sprayed something on the wall. James hit pause on the video. He zoomed in. "GETOUT," written in red letters. His hands began to shake. James woke Mia up. She stared at the screen in horror. "She brought someone with her," she whispered. "She's not just whispering anymore. She's attacking us." James nodded slowly. "And now we have proof." In the morning, James called the police again. An officer came and looked at the video. This time, he took notes and photos of the vandalism. "This is serious now," he said. "We'll look into it." But James wasn't hopeful. He had seen how the system worked. He had seen how they were treated before. Still, it was a step forward. Later that day, James uploaded the video to a private cloud. He made copies, one for his lawyer, one for a news station, just in case. That night, James and Mia sat on their porch in silence. Across the street, Mrs. Whitman sat in her usual spot, drinking tea. She didn't look worried. She didn't look guilty. She smiled. James looked her in the eye. She looked away. 2 days later, the young man from the video was arrested. His name was Tyler, and he was Mrs. Whitman's nephew. When questioned, he told the police everything. She said they were dangerous, Tyler admitted. She said she was protecting the neighborhood. James sat across from the officer, listening. Mia squeezed his hand. "She said what?" James asked, calmly. The officer nodded. She told him you were involved in drugs, that you were scaring the neighbors, that someone needed to send a message. James closed his eyes. She brainwashed him. The next morning, people on Maple Street woke up to something surprising. The truth. James had shared the video on a community Facebook page. It spread fast. Neighbors watched it. Some were shocked. Some were ashamed. Some pretended they didn't see anything. But the truth was out now. Later that day, the head of the homeowners association came by. A woman named Claire. She stood on James's porch, nervous. "I just want to say, we're sorry. We didn't know it was that bad." Mia looked at her quietly. "You didn't want to know." Claire nodded. "You're right, but it's not too late to fix things. Mrs. Whitman is being reviewed by the board. We're going to press charges, and we want to help clean up the vandalism." James didn't smile, but he nodded. "Thank you." That evening, as the sun set, something unusual happened. One by one, neighbors walked by. Some brought food. Some brought flowers. Some just said, "We're sorry." James and Mia accepted everything politely. But in their hearts, they knew it wasn't over yet. Mrs. Whitman still lived across the street, and she still watched them through her curtain. But now, they were watching her too. Later that night, James looked at Mia and said, "This war isn't just about us. It's about every family who moves somewhere and gets treated like they don't belong." Mia nodded. "But we do belong." And even though the pain wasn't gone, even though the fear wasn't fully over, something had changed. The truth was out. And the truth always finds a way to shine. After James posted the video, everything changed on Maple Street. Some neighbors started treating James and Mia with more kindness, but not everyone. Others began whispering louder behind closed doors. The street that once looked peaceful was now filled with tension. One morning, James stepped outside to pick up the newspaper. Across the street, Mrs. Whitman stood by her mailbox. She didn't smile this time. She didn't wave. She just stared, then turned her back and walked inside. Later that day, Maya was watering her flowers when a woman named Nancy, from 2 houses down, stopped by. "I just want to say I believe you," Nancy said softly. "Not everyone here agrees with her." Mia gave a small smile. "Thank you." But as Nancy walked away, another neighbor glared from their porch. The message was clear: pick a side. That weekend, the Homeowners Association held a meeting at the community center. James and Mia were invited. So was Mrs. Whitman. The room was packed. Neighbors filled every chair. Some looked angry. Some looked scared. Some stayed silent. Claire, the head of the board, stood up first. "We're here to talk about the recent events," she said, "and how we move forward as a community." James raised his hand. He stood up slowly. "I didn't come here to fight," he said. "I came here to live a quiet life with my wife. We didn't ask for this, but we will not be silent when someone tries to destroy our peace." Some people clapped. Others crossed their arms. Then Mrs. Whitman stood. She didn't look guilty. She didn't apologize. "I only did what I thought was right," she said. "I wanted to protect this neighborhood. That's all." Claire frowned. From who? From a kind couple who moved into a house they bought legally. Mrs. Whitman didn't answer. She just sat down. After the meeting, the neighborhood was never the same. Some neighbors stopped speaking to James and Mia altogether. Others brought over food and flowers again, trying to show support. But the air was thick with division. Half of Maple Street had woken up. The other half didn't want to. A few days later, someone painted over the red graffiti on James and Mia's wall. No note, no message, just quiet kindness. But that same night, someone else egged their front door. James cleaned it in silence. Mia helped him, tears in her eyes. "We're living in 2 worlds," she whispered. James nodded. "Truth makes people choose. Some choose hate, Some choose healing. One evening, a group of neighbors knocked on James's door. There were 5 of them, people James had barely spoken to before. "We want to start something new," one of them said. "A real neighborhood watch. Not one based on fear, one based on truth and fairness." James smiled, finally. This was what hope looked like. But across the street, Mrs. Whitman watched again. She had friends too. Whispers turned into louder voices. Some neighbors now called James troublemaker. Some said he brought drama into their peaceful street. They didn't want cameras. They didn't want change. They wanted things back the way they were. That night, Maya asked, "Do you ever think about moving?" James looked at her for a long moment. "Yes," he said, "but I also think about staying and showing them we're not afraid." Mia nodded. "Let's stay. Not for them. For us." The battle was no longer just between neighbors. Now it was between 2 ways of living. One side hiding behind lies and fear, the other stepping forward with truth and courage. And James and Mia stood right in the middle. The wind was loud that night. Leaves danced across the empty streets of Maple Street. Most houses were dark. Everyone was asleep. But inside James and Mia's home, a light was still on. Mia was reading in bed. James was reviewing work emails. It felt like a normal night, until a sound shattered the silence. Crash. Glass exploded from the front window. Mia screamed. James jumped out of bed. They ran to the living room. A brick lay on the floor, surrounded by shattered glass. Wrapped around it was a note. "Leave BFO or ATGT's worse." James froze. Mia covered her mouth, tears forming in her eyes. James picked up the brick slowly, careful not to touch the paper. He looked at her. This just turned into something else. He grabbed his phone and opened the security app. The camera had caught everything. A figure in a hoodie ran up to the house, through the brick, and vanished into the night. The face wasn't clear, but James had an idea. The police arrived within minutes. They took pictures, asked questions, wrote reports. But this time, they seemed more serious. The officer looked at the footage and said, "This is now considered a hate crime. We're going to investigate fully." James nodded. He had heard those words before. But this time, it felt different. Maybe someone was finally listening. News of the attack spread quickly the next day. It was on the local news. It was on social media. Reporters stood outside their home. Neighbors walked by quietly, some with guilt in their eyes, some still pretending nothing happened. But many of them were finally waking up. Claire, from the homeowners board, returned with other community members. "We're holding an emergency meeting," she said. "This can't go on." James and Mia attended again. The room was full, just like before. But this time, the energy was different. No one clapped. No one smiled. Everyone listened. James stood up. He held the brick in one hand, the note in the other. "This was thrown into my window while my wife and I were sleeping," he said calmly. "We could have been hurt, or worse." He placed the items on the table. "This is not just about racism anymore. This is about safety, about justice, and about what kind of neighborhood we want to be." The room was silent. Then, slowly, a man stood up. "I was silent before," he said, "but not anymore. This is wrong. All of it." One by one, more people stood. People who had once looked away. People who had once doubted. Now, they spoke up. Now they chose a side. Mrs. Whitman wasn't there that night, but she heard about it. She saw the faces. She saw the neighborhood starting to change, and she didn't like it. The next morning, a surprise came. A large sign was placed on James and Mia's lawn by their supporters. It said, "We stand with our neighbors." Other homes followed. One by one, signs popped up on lawns all over Maple Street. The message was clear. Hate wasn't welcome here anymore. But James wasn't celebrating yet. "We're not done," he told Mia. "Someone still needs to be held responsible." Mia nodded. "And they will." Later that week, the police called. The hoodie from the video had a patch, a symbol that helped them identify the attacker. It was Tyler, Mrs. Whitman's nephew, the same one who had vandalized their home earlier. He had been released weeks ago and came back, but now they had enough to arrest him again. This time, for real. The truth was out. Everyone could see it. Even Mrs. Whitman couldn't hide anymore. People started questioning her. Some neighbors stopped speaking to her. Others asked her to move. The street had changed, and she no longer felt safe in the place she once ruled with silence. That night, Maya looked out the window. The broken glass had been replaced. The lights were warm. The house felt whole again. She turned to James and said, "They tried to break us, but look at us. We're still standing." James smiled softly. "They threw a brick, but we built something stronger." It was a quiet morning on Maple Street. The birds sang softly, and the sun shone bright. But something had changed. People walked past Mrs. Whitman's house without waving. Some looked at her with cold eyes. Some didn't look at all. She sat on her porch like always, holding her tea, but she looked different now. Alone. Across the street, James and Mia sipped coffee together. They had no broken windows now. No fresh graffiti. Just peace. But James knew that peace had been earned through pain. The neighborhood was no longer silent. People talked now. People cared. They asked questions. They stood up. And for the first time, Maple Street was facing the truth it had hidden for so long. Later that day, a white car pulled up in front of Mrs. Whitman's home. 2 officers stepped out. Neighbors peeked through their windows. No one said a word. The officers knocked on her door. She opened it, her face confused. "Mrs. Whitman," one officer said, "we need to speak with you." She tried to smile. "I haven't done anything wrong," she said quickly. But the officers had a file in their hands. Tyler had confessed everything. He told them about the second brick. He told them who planted. He told them why. Mrs. Whitman's lies had finally caught up to her. Inside her house, they asked questions. She denied it at first, but her voice trembled. Her hands shook. Outside, a few neighbors gathered. They watched silently. James stood at the edge of his lawn, Mia beside him. They didn't smile. They didn't cheer. They just waited. 1 hour later, the door opened again. Mrs. Whitman stepped out, hands in front of her. Not handcuffed, not arrested, but exposed. The police had enough to investigate, enough to warn, but not yet enough to press full charges. Still, the damage was done. Her secrets were no longer secrets. Her shame was public now. That evening, a group of neighbors knocked on James and Mia's door. They came with candles. They wanted to hold a peaceful walk, to show unity, to take back their street from hate. James and Mia joined them. Dozens walked together down Maple Street, candles in hand, hearts full of quiet strength. As they passed Mrs. Whitman's house, she stood behind her curtain, watching. But this time, her face wasn't proud. It was filled with regret and fear. Later that night, a letter appeared on James's doorstep. It was handwritten, neat, careful. He opened it slowly. "James and Mia, I know I can never undo what I've done. But I see now how wrong I was. I let fear and hate guide me. I hope one day you can forgive me. Agnes Whitman." Maya read the letter quietly. She looked at James. "What do we do with this?" James thought for a long moment. Then he folded the letter and said, "We keep it, not because we forgive her, but to remember how far we've come." The next day, a for sale sign appeared in front of Mrs. Whitman's house. The same house where it all started. The same porch where she used to sit, full of judgment. Now it was quiet, empty. and ready to be passed on. Maple Street had changed. It had gone through fire, but now it was healing. Neighbors talked more. They laughed more. The signs that said, "We stand with our neighbors," were still in the yards, and new families started asking about moving in. One evening, a little boy from 2 houses down waved at James and said, "My dad said you're a hero." James smiled and knelt down. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I just didn't stay quiet." 2 months had passed since the candle walk. Maple Street looked the same, but it felt different. The silence that once held secrets now carried the sound of kindness, laughter, and change. And at the heart of it all were James and Mia. One Saturday morning, Maya stood in the front yard, watering her flowers. A little girl from next door ran up with a drawing. It showed James, Mia, and a big heart. "I made this in school," the girl said. "Our teacher said we should draw someone brave." Mia bent down, her eyes soft. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means more than you know." Inside the house, James was cleaning the living room when the doorbell rang. He opened it to find Claire from the neighborhood board. She held a clipboard and smiled. "We're renaming the community park," she said. "We want to name it after someone who stood up for what's right." James stepped back, surprised. "You want to name it after us?" Claire nodded. "You helped us open our eyes. And our hearts." That weekend, the community held a small ceremony. Neighbors brought picnic blankets. Kids played on the swings. An old wooden sign was taken down and replaced with a new one. "Hope Park, in honor of James and Mia." People clapped. James held Mia's hand. They didn't say much. They didn't need to. The sign said enough. Later that night, they sat on their porch. The same porch where they once felt scared. Now, it was a place of peace. "I never thought we'd come this far," Maya said softly. James nodded. "We didn't move into a perfect neighborhood, but maybe we helped create one." Just then, a moving truck pulled up across the street. Mrs. Whitman's house was being emptied. Boxes, chairs, memories, all taken away. A young couple stepped out of a small car, holding hands. They looked nervous. They looked hopeful. James watched them for a moment, then smiled. He walked across the street and held out his hand. "Hi, I'm James. Welcome to Maple Street." The couple smiled back. "Thank you," the man said. "We weren't sure what to expect here." James glanced at Mia, then said, "You can expect neighbors who care, and a street that's learning how to do better." Later, as the sun began to set, Maya took out the letter from Mrs. Whitman. She hadn't looked at it since that night. She read it again, slowly. Then she turned to James and said, "I think we should forgive her." James looked surprised. "Are you sure?" Mia nodded. "Not because she deserves it, but because we do." James took a deep breath. And slowly he nodded too. They placed the letter into a small box, along with a photo of their house on the day they moved in, a copy of the news article about the brick attack, and a candle from the night the neighbors walked together. They buried the box under the oak tree in their backyard. A memory box. Not to forget, but to remember how far they'd come. Maple Street wasn't perfect, but it was better. And better starts with brave people who choose love over fear. James and Mia never wanted to be heroes. They just wanted to live in peace. But sometimes, when you stand up, you light the way for others. As the stars filled the sky, Maya leaned on James's shoulder. "What now?" she asked. James smiled. "Now we rest. And tomorrow, we keep building something beautiful. Because real change doesn't happen overnight. It happens one voice at a time. One choice at a time. One heart at a time." And James and Mia had already begun.